They thought I was deaf. They thought I was blind. They thought old Tom had turned into a worn-out scarecrow in a rocking chair, waiting to topple over while they sharpened their knives. But I heard every word, every snicker, every plan whispered on my porch when they thought I was too weak, too slow, too gone. And in that moment, with my hands wrapped around a chipped coffee mug and my heart pounding harder than the clock on the wall, I realized something simple and sharp. My grandkids weren't visiting me. They were casing me. Not family, not blood, just scavengers, waiting for the right second to tear me apart. I stayed in the kitchen, the dim bulb over the sink flickering like it couldn't decide whether to keep burning or finally give up. The house smelled of coffee grounds and cold cornbread, the kind of smell that clings when you live alone too long. My knees ached, but I moved slow toward the door, careful not to make a sound. Their voices carried clear as daylight through the thin summer screen. "Once he's gone, it's all ours," Caleb said, that cocky voice of his making my skin crawl. "Don't jinx it," Lily shot back. "We just keep him comfortable, smile in his face, and when the lawyer calls, farm, money, everything, it's ours." A laugh followed. Not nervous laughter. Not ashamed. The kind of laugh hyenas make when they smell fresh meat. I froze in the dark kitchen, jaw locked so tight my teeth ached. I thought about the winters I'd gone without a coat just to buy them Christmas toys. About the nights I'd stayed awake fixing fences by lantern light so their bellies would be full. And now, after all that sweat and sacrifice, I was just a countdown timer to them. But rage doesn't paralyze me. Not anymore. Rage sharpens me. Rage reminds me who the hell I am. Because they don't know about Jacob, my brother's boy, the one they pretend never existed after the accident took his father. Everyone else cut him loose, left him drifting like some forgotten branch of the family tree. But not me. He wrote me letters as a teenager, scrawled desperate notes about working gas station shifts, about being invisible in his own house. And I answered. Every damn one. Later, he came to my farm after work, helped me lift feed sacks when my back gave out, fixed my tractor with grease up to his elbows. He never asked for $1. Never mentioned inheritance. He showed up because he cared, because that's who he was. And while my grandkids were too busy counting what they thought they'd get, I was already writing the future. The will was signed months ago, sealed tight with my lawyer downtown. My property, my savings, my farm, all of it going to the only one who acted like family when it mattered. The best part? The letter I left with it. Simple, brutal. Blood makes you related. Loyalty makes you family. And family is the one thing you four never were to me. I leaned back that night in my chair, listening to their voices cut the air like knives. My house wasn't warm anymore. It was a hunting ground, and I was the prey in their minds. But they had it wrong. I wasn't the prey. I was the trap. And when the day came, when the lawyer read Jacob's name out loud, those four spoiled faces would turn ghost white. Their greedy little dreams would turn to ash right in their mouths. And me? By then I'd be gone, but they'd still feel my hand around their throats. The next morning started like most mornings in my house. Quiet, stiff, with the air smelling faintly of old wood and yesterday's coffee. But there was something different in the way the silence sat. It wasn't peace. It was waiting, like a loaded gun under the table. I heard them before I saw them. Caleb's heavy boots thumping across my porch, Lily's shrill voice reminding him not to slam the screen door. They didn't bother knocking anymore. They never did when they thought they owned the place. "Morning, Grandpa," Lily chirped, her smile bright enough to blind a fool. But her eyes were already scanning the room, counting what she thought would be hers. My oak table, my grandfather clock, even the chipped lamp that's been here longer than she's been alive. Caleb dropped into a chair without asking, stretching like he'd just come home after a long day's work. He hasn't done a real day's work in years. "We've been thinking," he started, and that phrase alone made my jaw tighten. Nothing good ever follows those words. "About what?" I asked, keeping my voice flat, unshaken. "About the house," Caleb said. "And the farm. You know, it's a lot to manage. You're getting older. We figured it might be smart if you signed some papers. Just to make things easier, legally. That way, when the time comes, there's no confusion." Lily chimed in, sugar dripping from every syllable. It's for your own good, Grandpa. We want to make sure no one else takes advantage of you. We'll handle the tough stuff. I let their words hang in the room, heavy as smoke. Papers. Legal. Easier. I'd heard enough in my life to know exactly what those words meant. Sign away your life while you can still hold a pen. I leaned on my cane, tilted my head, and stared at them both long enough to make them squirm. You kids worried about me? I asked. Of course, Lily said, too quick. We just don't want you stressed. I almost laughed. Stressed. The only stress I had in that moment was fighting the urge to throw them both out by their collars. But instead, I nodded slowly. Let them think they were clever. I'll think about it, I said. That was enough for them. Caleb smirked, satisfied like a fisherman who thinks the hook's already set. Lily's hand brushed my shoulder on the way out. Soft, rehearsed. We just want what's best for you. When the door shut, the house fell silent again, but not before I caught Caleb mutter, "He'll fold. Just give him time." I stood in the kitchen a long while, staring at the wall where my late wife's photo hung. Mary's smile was as steady as ever, her eyes sharp even in black and white. Don't let them take your dignity, Tom, she used to tell me. Once you give that up, you're finished. Well, Mary, I wasn't finished. Not even close. That afternoon, I pulled out an old notebook from the drawer. Leather cover, pages yellowed, but still sturdy. I wrote down everything they'd said, word for word. Date, time, even Caleb's exact phrasing about no confusion. Evidence. I wasn't collecting memories anymore. I was building a record. As the sun dipped low, I took a slow walk through my land. The soil was damp from last night's rain, the smell of earth rich and alive. The barn stood tall at the edge of the field, boards weathered but strong. My fingers brushed the wood, and I thought about the generations that had stood on this soil, worked it, kept it alive. That's when Jacob's old pickup truck pulled up, engine coughing but steady. He stepped out in grease-stained jeans, wiping his hands on a rag. Evening, Uncle Tom, he said, that respectful tone in his voice that none of the others ever used. I nodded. Evening, Jacob. Got a minute? Always. We sat on the tailgate, the sky bleeding orange into purple. I didn't tell him everything yet, but I told him enough. About Caleb and Lily, about the papers, about how they thought I was slipping into the grave with one foot already planted. Jacob's jaw tightened, his eyes hard. They don't deserve a thing, he muttered. I know, I said. That's why I made sure they won't get it. But you? I paused, looking him dead in the eye. You've been here when nobody else cared. You've helped without asking. That's why I need you to be ready. He didn't ask what I meant. Didn't need to. He just nodded, steady as stone. When he drove off, taillights fading into the dark, I stood there a long while with the cool night pressing against my face. The crickets sang, the barn creaked, the world carried on. Inside, the house smelled faintly of oil and dust, the kind of smell you don't notice until you've been outside a while. I sat back at my table, pen in hand, and wrote one more line in the notebook. They think I'm a weak old man. Good. Let them keep thinking that. The higher they climb, the harder they'll fall. And in that moment, I knew part one of my revenge had begun. Patience. The kind of patience they'd never see coming. 2 days later they came back. No pie, no greetings, no "How are you, Grandpa?" Just the sound of their car doors slamming and the crunch of gravel under impatient shoes. My dog, Rusty, didn't even bother barking this time. He knew the smell of rot when he caught it. Lily barged in first, perfume clouding the doorway. Grandpa, we need to talk. Urgently. Caleb followed, jaw tight like he was trying to play the role of the responsible grandson. I leaned on my cane and stayed seated at the table. Didn't even rise to meet them. I wanted them to feel it, the shift in ground they hadn't noticed yet. What's the fire? I asked, keeping my voice flat. The bank, Lily blurted. We spoke with someone, and they said without proper authorization, your estate could get tied up for months, maybe years, when she caught herself before saying, when you die. When something happens. Caleb put down a folder on the table. Not leather. Cheap office supply store. Papers stacked neat, clipped, ready. He slid it toward me with 2 fingers like it was poison. All you need to do, he said carefully, is sign these transfer documents. It doesn't change anything now, but it secures everything for us later. No confusion, no outsiders interfering. We're protecting you. Protecting me. Those words almost made me laugh. I picked up the folder, flipped through. Legal jargon I'd seen before in my banking days. Power of attorney, property transfer, life estate rights. If I'd been the doddering fool they thought I was, I'd have signed my life away right there. I set the folder down, folded my hands over it, and looked Caleb in the eye. And what do I get out of this? He blinked, thrown off. Peace of mind, he said finally. Knowing everything's in order. Peace of mind comes from honesty, son, I said. Not from paperwork. The silence that followed was thick. Lily shifted, her painted nails drumming on the table. Caleb's nostrils flared just a little. They weren't used to pushback. I'll think about it, I said again, same words as last time. But this time, I slid the folder back across the table. Meanwhile, I'll have my lawyer take a look. That one landed. Caleb's face twitched. Lawyer? Since when do you need a? Since I worked 35 years at the bank and watched good men lose everything because they trusted the wrong people, I snapped. My voice cut sharper than I'd planned. The air in the room shifted. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then Lily pasted on her fake smile. Of course, Grandpa. It's smart to be cautious. We just want to help. They left not long after, but not before I saw the flicker of panic in their eyes. They'd wanted compliance. Instead, they got resistance. The moment their car pulled away, I opened my notebook and wrote it all down. Every word, every hesitation, every slip. Evidence. Not just in my head, but in ink. That night, the phone rang. Jacob's voice on the other end, steady as always. How bad, he asked. Bad enough, I said. They brought papers this time. Trying to corner me. You want me to come over? No, I said firmly. Not yet. Let them think I'm alone. Let them think I'm weak. It makes them sloppy. Jacob was quiet for a second, then he chuckled low. You always were a better chess player than them. Damn right, I said. And this game's just getting started. After I hung up, I sat by the window. Outside, the yard was dark, but the moonlight caught the barn roof, gleaming silver. The place still breathed with life, my work. And I wasn't about to let a pack of greedy children steal it from me. I poured myself black coffee, bitter as ash, and whispered to the empty kitchen. They think they're closing in, but they don't know the trap's already set. Rusty stirred at my feet, sighing like he understood. The house creaked, the clock ticked, and I felt the calm before the storm. Tomorrow, they'd push harder. And tomorrow, I'd start pushing back in ways they wouldn't see coming. The storm came quicker than I expected. By Thursday afternoon, I heard another car grind up my gravel driveway. Not Caleb's rusty pickup this time. No, this one was sleek, black, and polished, the kind of car that doesn't know mud. Out stepped a stranger in a gray suit, briefcase in hand. Behind him, Caleb and Lily followed like soldiers dragging their general. Grandpa, Lily called sweetly, her voice straining with false charm. We thought it'd be easier if someone explained things professionally. The suited man extended a hand I didn't take. Mr. Tomlin, he said crisply, I'm Mr. Harris, licensed estate attorney. Your grandchildren asked me to come clarify some legal matters. I stood in the doorway, cane in hand, Rusty growling low at my side. My eyes swept over Caleb, nervous twitch in his jaw, and Lily, smug like a cat bringing home a mouse it didn't catch itself. Estate attorney, huh? I said. Funny. I already got one of those. Caleb's smile faltered. Grandpa, come on. Harris just wants to make sure you understand the risks. You don't want to leave things messy. I let them inside. Not because I trusted them, but because sometimes you've got to let the wolves into the pen if you want to watch how they circle. We sat at my oak table. Harris opened his briefcase, laid out shiny new documents, and began his polished pitch about simplifying assets and avoiding probate delays. His words were slick, rehearsed, like a salesman who thinks his audience is too dumb to catch the con. I didn't interrupt. I let him ramble, let Lily nod along, let Caleb smirk like victory was in reach. Then I leaned forward, folding my hands slowly on the table. Tell me something, Mr. Harris. Who's paying you for this visit? The room went still. Harris cleared his throat. Your grandchildren are covering my retainer. I smiled, slow, deliberate. So, technically, you work for them. Not me. Caleb rushed in. No, no, Grandpa. This is for your benefit. I cut him off with a raised hand. Quiet. My voice carried more steel than I'd used in years. The effect was immediate. Caleb snapped his mouth shut. Rusty shifted under the table, nails clicking on the floorboards. I slid the folder of documents back across to Harris with 2 fingers. Here's how this works. You leave those papers here. I'll give them to my lawyer. If they're legitimate, we'll proceed. If they're not, well, then I've got proof my grandchildren tried to trick me into signing away my life. Lily's face drained of color. Caleb's smirk cracked. Grandpa, that's not. Lily started. It's exactly what it looks like, I snapped. You think I can't read between lines? I may be old, but I'm not blind, and I'm not stupid. You forget I spent 30 years catching liars at the bank. You think I can't spot a fraud dressed up in a suit? The silence in that room was thick enough to slice. Harris cleared his throat again, fumbled his papers back into the briefcase, and muttered something about review. He couldn't get out fast enough. When the door finally closed behind him, I turned to Caleb and Lily. My cane tapped once, sharp against the floor. You come into my house, you bring strangers, you try to corner me like some half-wit. You think I'll fold? No. You've just given me something better than peace of mind. You've given me evidence. They stared, stunned, their little scheme crumbling right in front of them. Get out, I said coldly. And for the first time in their greedy little lives, they obeyed. The screen door slammed. Their car roared down the gravel. Silence returned, heavy but clean, like rain washing dirt off the earth. I walked to the mantel, to Mary's photo. She smiled at me with that knowing look, like she could see the whole game playing out. Step 1, I whispered. They've exposed themselves. Step 2, they won't see coming. Rusty wagged his tail, sensing the shift in the air. I patted his head. My notebook waited on the table, and I added the day's events, every detail locked in ink. My grandkids thought they'd tested me, but all they'd done was trigger the first real move in my revenge. The first sign came in the dead of night. Rusty's low growl yanked me awake before the creak of the back porch did. I'd lived in this house 50 years. I knew which boards groaned under a raccoon and which under a man. This one was no raccoon. I slid out of bed slow, careful, the cool floor biting at my bare feet. The clock on the nightstand blinked 2:47 a.m. I reached for the baseball bat leaning by the dresser. Not because I planned on swinging it, but because sometimes a bat in your hands makes a man pause before he makes a mistake he can't undo. Through the crack of my bedroom door, I saw it. A flashlight beam sliding across the hallway wall, jittery, nervous. Caleb. I'd recognize that heavy breathing anywhere. Behind him, lighter steps, Lily. They whispered, not nearly as quiet as they thought. Check the desk drawer, Caleb muttered. No, the cabinet by the kitchen, Lily hissed. That's where he keeps mail. Maybe the will's there. The will. They weren't even pretending anymore. I stayed in the shadows, heart steady. Let them dig. Let them bury themselves. They rifled through drawers, clumsy fingers knocking pens to the floor, shuffling old receipts and farm ledgers. Then Caleb cursed under his breath. Damn it. Nothing. Keep looking, Lily snapped. We know he's got something. Rusty padded up behind me, his growl rising. I crouched, one hand on his collar. Not yet, boy, I whispered. After 10 minutes of chaos, papers scattered, drawers left half open, they gave up, stomping toward the door. I caught one last gem of a line as they stepped outside. If he won't hand it over, we'll make him look incompetent, Lily sneered. Then the court will. The door clicked shut. Their car started, headlights slicing through my window, and then the night swallowed the sound. I stood there in the silence, staring at the mess they'd left. My house, turned upside down by my own blood. My hands trembled, not from fear, but from fury so cold it burned. I cleaned nothing. Instead, I fetched my camera, an old Nikon, still sharp enough, and snapped photos of every open drawer, every paper strewn across the floor. Evidence. By sunrise, Mrs. Harper from across the road came by with a basket of tomatoes. Her eyes landed on the chaos through the doorway, and her jaw dropped. Good Lord, Tom, what happened here? I let the weight of her stare settle. Just family visiting, I said dryly. You know how it is. But I knew she'd talk. In this town, she didn't just carry tomatoes, she carried stories. And once the story spread that my grandkids had been sneaking into my house in the middle of the night, no amount of sweet smiles would polish their image again. That afternoon, I took it further. I walked into Miller's Diner, the place where every farmer and shop owner within 20 miles swapped news. I ordered my usual black coffee, loud enough for ears to perk up, and told the waitress plain as day. Strangest thing. Woke up last night to find Caleb and Lily rummaging through my cabinets. Looking for my will, they said. Shame, really. Forks paused midair. Conversations died mid-sentence. The words hung there, heavy, irresistible. By the time I drained my coffee, I didn't have to spread a damn thing. The room had already done it for me. Walking home, the autumn wind cut sharp, carrying the smell of dry leaves and wood smoke. My cane tapped steady on the pavement, and for the first time in weeks, my chest felt light. They'd crossed a line, and now the whole town knew it. That evening, I wrote in my notebook, caught in the act, community aware, their image cracking, and under it, one more line. Next, make them desperate enough to destroy themselves. Rusty curled at my feet, tail thumping once, twice. The house creaked softly, almost approving. My grandkids thought they were hunting me. But by now, the whole town could see who the real scavengers were. And the trap? It was tightening. They didn't waste time. 3 days after the midnight search, I got a letter with a courthouse seal on it. Not a neighborly note, not a family visit, an official notice. Petition to declare Thomas R. Tomlin incompetent. My name, my life, reduced to black ink on cheap paper. I sat at the kitchen table, the envelope torn open, the words burning into my eyes. They claimed I was forgetful, erratic, incapable of managing finances or property. Caleb swore in his affidavit that I'd left the stove on 3 times last month. Lily wrote that I'd forgotten where I kept important documents, leaving the estate at risk. Lies, stacked one on top of the other, like bricks in a wall meant to bury me alive. I poured a cup of coffee, black as tar, and let it sit untouched. My hand rested on the table, next to the letter, steady as stone. This was their big move. Their desperate play. Good. I'd been waiting for it. That afternoon, I drove into town. My cane clicked on the marble floors of the courthouse, echoing louder than their signatures on that petition ever could. Judge Reynolds, an old hunting buddy, looked up from his papers when I walked in. Tom, he said, brows raising. Heard your grandkids been busy. Busy's one word, I muttered. What I need is the truth laid out clear, in front of everyone. He nodded slowly. There's a hearing in 2 weeks. You'll get your chance. Make sure you've got more than just your word. I tipped my hat. I always do. On the way home, I stopped at the diner. Same corner booth, same black coffee. The regulars glanced my way, the whispers already buzzing. I let them. A man doesn't need to shout when the whole town is already speaking for him. That evening, Jacob rolled into the driveway, dust trailing behind his old pickup. He hopped out with a binder under his arm, thick as a family Bible. What's this? I asked. Proof, he said, setting it on the table. He'd helped me digitize my records weeks back. Bank statements, property deeds, tax receipts going back a decade. Every page was neat, dated, indisputable. Smart boy, I muttered, flipping through. That's not all, Jacob added. He pulled out his phone, scrolled, and played an audio file. Caleb's voice filled the kitchen, muffled but clear. If he won't hand it over, we'll make him look incompetent. Then the court will. My chest rumbled with a low laugh. They dug their own grave. Jacob smirked. I just brought the shovel. The 2 weeks crawled, but I stayed busy. I let neighbors drop by, Mrs. Harper with fresh bread, old Bill from church fixing my fence post. Each one saw me sharp, steady, capable. Each one left shaking their head at the gall of my grandkids. By the time of the hearing, the town was buzzing like a hornet's nest. The courthouse was packed that morning. Wooden benches creaked under the weight of curious eyes. Caleb strutted in first, suit too shiny, face stiff with forced confidence. Lily followed, pearls at her throat like she was auditioning for respectability. When they saw Jacob sitting beside me, binder in his lap, they faltered. Just a flicker, but I caught it. Predators don't expect their prey to show up with teeth. The judge called order. Caleb's lawyer stood, spouting lines about concern for an aging patriarch and potential dangers of unmanaged property. Lily dabbed her eyes with a tissue she didn't need, every move rehearsed. Then it was my turn. I rose slow, cane tapping once on the wood floor, and the room stilled. My grandkids say I'm incompetent, I began, voice steady, sharp. That I can't manage my home, my land, my money. They call me a burden. They want control. But what they want and what's true aren't the same thing. Jacob handed me the binder. I opened it, page by page. Bank records. Utility bills paid on time. Tax receipts signed and filed. Every detail precise. Then came the recording. The room held its breath as Caleb's own voice betrayed him, spilling his scheme into the air like oil on water. Make him look incompetent. Then the court will. The judge's gavel slammed once, sharp as a gunshot. Caleb's lawyer stammered, tried to object, but it was over. The damage was done. The petition was dismissed on the spot. My competence affirmed in black and white. And their credibility? Shattered. As we left, whispers followed them, not me. Words like shameful, ungrateful, disgrace. Lily kept her head down, face blotched red. Caleb tried to stare me down, but his eyes blinked first. Outside, the autumn air was crisp, clean. Jacob clapped my shoulder. Step 2 complete, he said. I looked up at the courthouse clock, ticking steady against the sky. They wanted a fight, I muttered. Now they've got one. And I'm just warming up. The courthouse defeat should have shut them up. Should have made them crawl back under whatever rock greedy kids go to lick their wounds. But it didn't. Instead, Caleb and Lily doubled down. 2 days later, I saw their car parked outside the diner. Through the window, I caught them whispering to Mr. Miller, the owner, heads bent low. By the time I stepped inside, half the room went silent. People tried not to look, but I've lived long enough to feel eyes on my back like heat from a stove. They were spinning a new story. Old Tom's gone senile. Judge didn't see it. But just wait. He's dangerous. Best not to trust him. I sat at the counter, ordered black coffee, and let them run their mouths. But inside, something cold clicked into place. They weren't just after my land anymore. They wanted my name, my dignity. They wanted to turn me into a town fool so no one would question when they finally grabbed what wasn't theirs. Fine. If it was my name they wanted to play with, I'd make damn sure the whole town heard my version first. That night, Jacob came by. We sat at the kitchen table, plans spread between us. My notebook, his binder of evidence, and the envelope with my sealed will from my lawyer. You sure you want to go public? Jacob asked. His voice was steady, but I could see the worry in his eyes. I'm sure, I said. They've had their whispers. Time for me to speak louder. So we planned. By Saturday, the town hall was full. I'd arranged it as a community gathering, harvest supper, pie contest, the kind of thing folks showed up for out of habit. Caleb and Lily came too, smug as ever, thinking they'd be the stars of the night. When the pies were gone and the chatter slowed, I stood up. My cane tapped the wooden floor once, sharp enough to cut the noise. Neighbors, I said, my voice carrying steady across the hall. I've got something to say. Eyes turned. The air thickened. Caleb shifted in his chair, already sensing danger. You've heard stories, I continued, about me being old, confused, a burden. Maybe you've even heard that my own grandchildren think I can't manage my own affairs. A murmur swept the room. People glanced at Caleb and Lily. Their faces flushed. Well, I said, pulling the envelope from my coat pocket, tonight you'll hear the truth. I broke the seal. The rustle of paper was the only sound in the room. This, I said, holding it high, is my will. Signed, sealed, and witnessed. And in it, every acre, every dollar, every damn nail in my barn goes not to Caleb, not to Lily, not to any of my so-called family who see me as a wallet with a heartbeat. It goes to the one person who's shown loyalty without asking for a dime, my nephew Jacob. Gasps. Sharp, cutting. Head swiveled. Caleb lurched to his feet, face red as a fire hydrant. "You can't do that," he barked. "We're your blood." I raised my cane, pointing it like a rifle. "Blood makes you related. Loyalty makes you family. And you two never understood the difference." The hall erupted. Some clapped, some whispered, some shook their heads in disgust at Caleb and Lily. Mrs. Harper shouted from the back, "We saw you sneaking into his house at night." The color drained from Lily's face. Caleb tried to shout over the noise, but the tide had turned. Their reputations collapsed in front of everyone. Neighbors, co-workers, friends. No more whispers. The truth was out. Jacob stepped up beside me, steady as ever. "Uncle Tom's not alone," he said simply. I looked across that sea of faces and felt the weight lift from my chest. For months they tried to strip me down to nothing. But here I was, standing tall, my voice louder than their lies. As the crowd swarmed with chatter, Caleb and Lily slunk out the back, heads bowed, reputations in ashes. I tapped my cane twice against the floor, a signal to myself. The circle was almost complete. One more move, and they'd feel the final blow, the kind that doesn't just bruise pride, but leaves scars they'd carry the rest of their lives. The night after the town hall, my phone wouldn't stop ringing. Neighbors, old friends, even the pastor, they all said the same thing. "Tom, we're proud of you. We never knew what those kids were up to." But pride wasn't enough. Not for me. Not yet. I wanted this finished. Not just whispers, not just shame. I wanted their greed carved into stone where no one could scrape it clean. That Monday, I walked into my lawyer's office with Jacob at my side. The smell of fresh coffee and polished wood filled the air. My lawyer, Mr. Preston, adjusted his glasses, studying the binder and notebook I laid before him. "They broke into my home," I said flatly. "They tried to trick me with false documents. Then they filed a petition to strip me of my rights. I've got dates, witnesses, and their own voices recorded. What I want now is simple. Make sure they can't touch me, or this land, ever again." Preston smiled thinly. "Then we'll take this public. Elder exploitation carries weight. They'll be lucky to walk away without charges." By the end of the week, papers were filed. Not me on trial this time, them. Fraud, attempted coercion, harassment. The news spread faster than fire in dry grass. Caleb lost his job within days. His boss didn't want the company tied to scandal. Lily's church circle, once her pride, turned its back overnight. Invitations dried up. Their so-called friends stopped answering calls. But the best part came 2 weeks later. Court. I stood tall, cane in hand, Jacob steady beside me. Across the aisle sat Caleb and Lily, pale, small, stripped of arrogance. The judge listened as Preston laid out everything. The midnight break-in, the false papers, the recordings. When the audio played, Caleb's voice snarling. "If he won't hand it over, we'll make him look incompetent. Then the court will." The entire room turned to stare at him. Even his lawyer slumped. The gavel came down. Petition denied. Charges recommended. And then the words I'd been waiting for. This court finds evidence of elder exploitation. Further proceedings will determine restitution. Restitution. My word for revenge in black and white. Outside the courthouse, reporters circled. Microphones flashed in Caleb's face. He shoved past them, Lily trailing like a shadow. Their fall was no longer private. It was public, permanent. That evening, I sat on my porch with Jacob. The air was cool, carrying the smell of cut hay and wood smoke. Rusty curled at my boots, tail thumping lazily. "You think they'll ever learn?" Jacob asked quietly. I sipped my coffee, watching the sun bleed gold across my fields. "Maybe. Maybe not. Doesn't matter. They've lost everything they wanted, and everyone knows why." He nodded, silent. I leaned back, the boards of the old rocking chair creaking under me. Mary's photo hung just inside, her smile catching the glow of the lamp. I imagined her voice, soft but firm. "Don't let them take your dignity, Tom." I hadn't. I'd taken theirs instead. My grandkids wanted to bury me alive in shame. Now they were the ones buried, under their own lies, their own greed, their own disgrace. And the last thing I whispered into that cool evening air, steady and sharp as a blade, was this: "Blood may make you related, But loyalty makes you family. And family, they never were.